Okay, it looks like we are live. Hello and welcome to Nerd Church on this lovely Thursday afternoon. And we are going, and I had originally planned on just continuing a breakdown of what's going on with the Catholic Church, specifically with regard to becoming SSPX schism. However, there's been enough happened in the last week that I've decided that instead, the more sensible policy will be to just kind of do a series of videos that will be airing on Thursday, basically just explaining who the current players are in the SSPX, and then just kind of keeping our current Thursday streams as being just kind of, keeping you up to date on what is going on at the current moment. Basically just explaining who the current players are, what's going on at the current moment, and just kind of, everything that you need to understand as we're building up for July 1st. Because honestly, I don't want to live in the SSPX fever swamp that long, especially when there's stuff coming up that actually makes a difference that people need to know about. For example, today, and I wasn't able to find a good video clip of it, but to paraphrase, basically, Pope Leo made a statement in which he said that he thought that the Catholic Church had been too fixated on issues of sexual morality, and that, basically that, abortion, contraception, and gay marriage cannot be the be end all and end all of what the church teaches, and that the Catholic Church is going to need to focus more on issues of, justice and humane treatment for all people, and making sure that, once children are born, they're treated well. And this, I understand, came up as a disappointment to a bunch of people, largely because they were hoping for, some great bold statement on, oh yeah, we're totally going to allow gay marriage now, which would be, to a lot of people, the ideal. However, that may not happen, but there was something extremely interesting and extremely useful and extremely hopeful in Pope Leo's statement. And that was essentially him saying that Amoris Laetitia and Fiducia Supplicans, and those are two documents that, coming up, I'm going to start actually just reading through some of these major encyclicals, just so that we can start talking, just so that we can start having a conversation about what do they say, what do they not say, why are papal encyclicals even important? But for now, just trust and believe that a papal encyclical is something that the Pope writes to say what's going on right now, what he thinks are important, and what's going to be going on in the future. And that it basically sets the current, well, as Leo put it, it sets the floor, right? It doesn't necessarily say that in different places people can't do more than this, because keep in mind that in their dioceses and in their archdioceses, bishops have actually a tremendous amount of freedom. But what it can do, but it creates a floor. It says you can't go below that. And Leo reaffirmed, and this had previously been stated by Cardinal Victor Manuel Fernandez, Tuco, friend of the show, who that basically Amoris Laetitia and Fiducia Supplicans, which are the two documents that open the door for people in what are called, and this is also important, for people in irregular unions, which includes both same-sex couples, but it also includes opposite sex couples who are, for whatever reason, not legally married, or who are legally married but who don't have a valid Catholic marriage. And we'll talk about the difference in that coming up. But the point is that those couples can all be blessed. So it's not drawing a distinction between gay and straight. It's making it very clear that the distinction is between married and unmarried, and that there is a potential for same-sex couples as well as other types of couples who are not legally married, or for whatever reason are not able to be legally married, can still receive the sacraments, can still participate in the life of the church, and their unions can still be blessed. And that isn't going to change. So what Leo's saying is that there is a base level of acceptance and support that's not going to go away. And yeah, a lot of people are sitting here going, oh yeah, what does he want, a cookie? That's the bare minimum. Yeah, that's the point. He's doing the bare minimum. He's establishing what the bare minimum is, and then people are free to push on those boundaries a little bit. And one of the people who's pushing on those boundaries a little bit is the Cardinal Marx that I referred to in the title of this live stream. Because there's some fun stuff going on in Germany right now. And also keep in mind that Leo is saying we're not going to care about issues related to sex and reproduction right now. That's also Leo saying, hey, American cardinals, American bishops, American Catholics who have been willing to get into bed and stay in bed with fascists because they're willing to make the right mouth noises about making abortion illegal, that may not be a good option anymore, because we need to be looking at other issues. We cannot, he's also saying that Catholics can no longer be single issue voters on abortion. And that has the potential to complicate the American political landscape a lot. And people are responding to that in different ways. And I want to show a few examples of that. So we're going to start out just with a little, we're going to start out, and I'm only giving myself 30 minutes because I do not want this to become an Anthony Stein response channel. But I want, so we're going to take 30 minutes. We're going to go over Anthony Stein. And then I also want to talk about Sean Hannity deciding he's not going to be Catholic, because that's also important for what's coming up. But let's get started. I'm going to go into screen sharing. And the reason why I want you to listen to Anthony Stein is because he is going to show you what kind of the extremely conservative, extremely traditional Catholic, as in obsessed,
a gift he didn't want for the church. Nobody
obsessed with the Latin Mass people are saying right now. And the reason why I want to show you what he's saying is because as he's saying all of these things, keep in your mind, he is criticizing a cardinal of the Catholic Church who, as he will yell if we get far enough into the video, is not going to be excommunicated. A cardinal of the Catholic Church who, at most, Leo's saying, yo, Cardinal Marx, slow your roll a little bit. He's not saying sit down and shut up. That means that if same-sex blessings come out in Germany and work out and are a good deal, it could spread. And Anthony Stein is big mad about that. So, let's listen to the trad position from one of the best trads. And again, Marx is a cardinal. Anthony Stein is a Catholic layman in Oklahoma. So, yeah, the man has a right to his opinion. I also have a right to my opinion. And the only difference between him and me is that I'm arguing on the side of the Pope and he's arguing against the Pope. So let's go.
Prayer cards featuring complete English phonetic renderings of Latin pronunciations.
Fiducia Supplicans is the document from Francis and Cardinal Fernandez that just keeps on giving. It's a gift he didn't want for the church. No rational person anyway, really wanted a document that upfront reaffirmed the church's teaching
I
on
wanted
matrimony,
it.
who can participate in the sacrament.
I wanted it. It was good. I liked it. Just saying.
Nobody wanted a document that started that way and then ended with a rejection of the teaching for pastoral reasons, because that's what the document did. It opened up the possibility of priests who could not be pressured into doing so, according to the document, by their bishops, offering spontaneous, non-liturgical blessings for people in irregular relationships. These would be the divorced and civilly remarried Catholics who had not gotten an annulment, so they could not get remarried in the church, or
had not yet gotten an annulment. Because keep in mind, it's simply common for not so much maybe in the last like 5 to 10 years, but it used to be incredibly common for Catholic married outside of the church, remarried a Catholic, and then quite simply then realize, oh crap, I've got a whole bunch of paperwork that I need to do.
James Martin types in their unholy parody of holy matrimony, or a whole host of other people. The church offered them blessings that were
Again, when Anthony Stein says James Martin types, he means gay people. He means gay men, and he means lesbians, and he means bisexual people who are in same-sex relationships. He is using coded language to avoid YouTube censorship. And that's not cool.
Liturgical in nature, not to be confused with holy matrimony. There was not supposed to be a special ceremony for all of this. And we all knew that what would end up happening is you would have these ceremonial blessings where the priest or deacon would appear in full clerical garb. It would be done in churches, and it would look in every way like the sacrament of holy matrimony, except for missing the key elements that make it a sacrament, which is exactly what ended up happening. And priests started getting pressured to do this by their bishops, but kind of informally. Well, the other shoe was dropped. They're all being ordered to do this now, and we'll get to that in a moment. But I want to give you an update on the story we started with yesterday, which is the story of the IDF soldier.
Yeah, we're going to skip that. I have no interest in giving more oxygen to that. The very brief summary is that a couple of IDF soldiers in Lebanon made some very unfortunate decisions and are going to be spending some time in military jail because of that. And the Israeli government apologized and did everything they could to make right. So there's no reason for beef. And to be fair, Mr. Stein did not accuse them of doing anything wrong. However, I don't want to bring this up more often, and I don't want to platform someone like him who skirts on the edges of anti-Semitism. An individual did a bad thing, an individual was punished, and everybody understands that it was one individual. Okay, but let's hear about Marx. Because remember, we could have theoretically had an actual Marxist pope. That is, Cardinal Marx.
Divorced and remarried and received the sacraments. And he pointed to the Eastern Orthodox for their deviation from the gospel on that issue, because Jesus makes pretty clear you can't get it, that marriage is forever. The church's way around that, if you want to call it around that, is that if you entered into a marriage and didn't know what you were doing, basically, you could get an annulment under certain circumstances. And it used to be one of the most rare things granted. Annulments were extremely rare.
Yeah, actually, everything Anthony Stein is saying is right. The Catholic Church's way around annulments has historically, around divorce, has been to say that that it is entirely possible for people to enter into a marriage or rather to go through a marriage ceremony without fully understanding what that entails or what they're getting themselves into, or they were pressured by someone else. And at that point, after a certain period of time, they might decide to separate and they might decide to have the marriage annulled. It's also entirely possible that you can have a valid marriage in which it is impossible for the couple to continue living together. The Catholic Church has always allowed for that. Anthony Stein is coming from a tradition in which the prohibition on divorce is being used as a club and a cudgel to keep women in abusive relationships and to keep men in abusive relationships. That is not Catholic. The Pope is the one who gets to set policy, and Pope Francis decided that annulments are going to be okay going forward.
The English participation in the Reformation could have been at least stalled, if not prevented entirely, had Henry VIII received an annulment. And by modern standards, he probably would have been granted one.
Okay, this is actually something that I know about. Henry VIII would have, in the 16th century, inevitably gotten an annulment. He did not get an annulment for one very simple reason, and that very simple reason is this. At the time that Henry VIII asked for his annulment, Catherine of Aragon's nephew was occupying Rome. And he didn't want his cousin, Mary, to be disinherited, because his cousin Mary had been proposed as a wife for him. And she was getting up to the age where she might be marriageable. Indeed, Charles V was eventually willing to roll the dice and have his son Philip marry Mary. That is, Queen Mary I of England. So you basically ended up with a situation where, for political reasons, the Pope didn't grant an annulment, when normally he would have. So the upshot was that the English Reformation happened for stupid political reasons that really had nothing to do with the merits of the case. I mean, should the annulment have been granted? I don't know. I don't care. It was a really long time ago. But just speaking from history, Henry VIII probably would have been granted the annulment if it hadn't been seen as an attempt to disinherit his daughter.
And Marx was the leader of this movement to make this allowable. And there are other circumstances. You get an annulment in the Catholic Church, even like back in the 80s. But his advice was finally heeded by Francis, and Amoris Laetitia was published, which allowed just what he wanted. This was the breaking point for a lot of people under Francis, realizing that something was rotten with Francis. Amoris Laetitia was explicitly the inspiration for Fiducia Supplicans, the document that allowed all manner of perversions to be blessed by the church.
Again, Anthony Stein is a layman living in Oklahoma who is eking out an income as a YouTuber. Cardinal Marx is a German archbishop who has been pushing for these policies to change since the 1980s, and Cardinal Marx has a pope on his side. Cardinal Marx has two popes on his side. Both Cardinal Marx and Anthony Stein could be told that they need to sit down and shut up tomorrow by the pope, and they would have to make a choice. And Marx has shown that he is willing to work with the Pope and obey the Pope and work right up to the edge of what's allowed. Basically, Amoris Laetitia and Fiducia Supplicans established the floor, and Marx is working on establishing the current ceiling. But we know where the floor is. And now we're going to see where the ceiling is.
And so now, Marx, whose retirement, by the way, was rejected by Francis, something that he offered to retire early because of his own role in hiding away McCarrick-type priests. Well,
when Anthony Stein means McCarrick-type priests, he is referring to priests who have been credibly accused of having been involved in SA. Marx did not hide anyone. He did not move anyone around. However, there were cases where he didn't handle the case as well as he could have. He didn't move as quickly as he could have. People weren't suspended as quickly as they ought to have been. He mishandled. He did not hide. It's a small difference, but it's an important difference. Marx is not someone who deliberately covered up sexual abuse. And honestly, the fact that Marx did an okay job, but not a great job, is probably one of the reasons why Marx was not seriously in the running to be considered Pope. The other reason is, well, frankly, he's too liberal. Most of the Germans are too liberal to be palatable to the more conservative cardinals. And that was the other reason. But let's just get to what Marx actually did.
Kind of wish he'd been accepted. Headline from LifeSite. Well, this is the actual background on this, because he's ordering his priest to give these blessings, which is a violation of a Vatican order. So we're going to start with the Vatican order. This comes from also LifeSite headline. Vatican did not approve German bishops' James Martin blessing guidelines. Yes, the German bishops wanted to publish official guidelines for offering these blessings. That's a violation of Fiducia Supplicans. The Vatican did not approve it. I guess we should be happy that they did not approve it. It did. In April, the German Bishops' Conference published guidelines for blessings of these kinds of couples, the divorced and civilly remarried, and other irregular unions. The supposed...
Okay, that's the point where I'm going to stop, because that's the money. The German bishops have a book of blessings that priests and deacons are allowed to use, and it includes specific texts to be memorized or read out for blessing same-sex couples, divorced and remarried couples, couples of all gender identities and sexual orientations, as well as couples who do not want to or cannot receive the sacrament of marriage for other reasons. So basically, this is creating a system in which potentially people that heterosexual couples who want to have kids can enter into the sacrament of marriage, and people who don't want that kind of relationship can enter into a different kind of relationship and be blessed. This is huge. This is important. And yeah. So anyway, so we're blessing same-sex couples now, and we're not backing down on blessing same-sex couples. And I'm going to play. I'm going to just express. I'm going to let the words of the 118th Psalm express my feelings while I go on a quick bio break.
This is the day, this is the day that the Lord has made, that the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it, and be glad in it. This is the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. This is the day, this is the day that the Lord has made. This is the day, this is the day that the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it, and be glad in it. The Lord has made. This is the day that the Lord has. This is the day. This is the day that the Lord has made. That the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. Glad in it. I will rejoice and be glad in it. This is the day. This is the day that the Lord has made.
And yes, that was a perhaps overly obnoxious rendition of that song, but it felt kind of good. Bede has remarked that Henry's argument for why the marriage was invalid was kind of BS. That is a very long issue that I will probably address in a separate video, because the whole Henry VIII divorce thing is kind of a lot. And it's fun. But anyway, I will, but that's in the past. The past is on Tuesday. Thursdays are the days where we talk about things that are affecting the church right now, today, immediately in 2024. So basically, yeah, same-sex marriage, probably not going to happen. Blessings for same-sex couples, yes, absolutely. Same-sex couples being allowed to participate in the life of the church, yes, absolutely. This is, but it's an ongoing issue and it's a developing issue. And the other thing that's going on here, which is really kind of the elephant in the room, is the issue of polygamy. Because there are a lot of places in Africa where polygamy is normal. And it's not really, okay, yes, it does sometimes happen because, somebody wants a trophy wife. But it also happens because you have situations where, um, not all men are able to get married and support a family. And in a lot of cultures in Africa, it's understood that that it's better for a woman to become a second or a third or a fourth wife rather than to remain unmarried. And if that means that, rich guys get more wives, well, then that's how it goes. And there are a lot, and that's been an issue for the church in various parts of Africa for a very long time. And the African bishops are basically like, well, hey, if you'll bless same-sex couples, can we cut a deal on polygamy? And polygamy is, from a Catholic point of view, a lot more complicated because it's understood to be, difficult, if not impossible, to have the kind of relationship that the Catholic Church expects a married couple to have when you have more than one person involved, because it changes the dynamics of the relationship. I don't know the right answer to that. It's not my job. Frankly, I'm glad it's not my job because it's complicated. Um, and I don't know what the right answer is. And the answer could have, and we might be heading towards some kind of a system where there's like marriage and like Josephite marriage. Or there might be, the point is that there's ways and there's room, but it kind of, a lot is going to depend on who wants to maneuver where. And also, frankly, as we're heading, since we are indeed at, schism watch right now, schism watch is going to kind of determine whether or not, oh my gosh, there's like 3 people watching this video. Like, share, subscribe, do all the things. I feel valid as a human, especially when 2 people who are much cooler than me are currently live streaming right now. So hey, I feel honored that 3 of you decided to waste your time over here. Cool. Okay. Anyway, so basically, and I bring up the polygamy issue because that's actually a really big issue in trad world, because a lot of the African bishops are extremely conservative when it comes to same-sex relationships, but they would be fine with providing a similar level of blessing and support to polygamous couples as long as the marriage is between a man and multiple women. And so the trads in Europe and America don't really trust the Africans, no matter how socially conservative they are on every other issue, no matter how much they love the Latin Mass, no matter how conservative they are in terms of liturgy. And as we head into, schism watch, and as we head into schism, that is a fissure, that's a break in sort of trad world that could end up meaning that Africa might not schism. And Cardinal Turkson, who was probably the most likely African candidate to be Pope, has not said anything publicly about the SSPX. He's busy running his diocese. And Cardinal Sarah is going around doing various official functions for Pope Leo. And he said, no, we have to be loyal. We have to trust Pope Leo. It's an interesting thing. Now, I should also mention I also wanted to highlight before we move on to the next thing, something that Anthony Stein brought up is that Cardinal Marx has reached the mandatory age for retirement. What does that mean? What that means is that in the Catholic Church, bishops serve until they are 75. The day that a bishop turns 75, he writes a letter of resignation to the Pope. It sits on the Pope's desk. And then the Pope can decide to accept his resignation or not accept his resignation. And, Marx offered to resign. He said, dude, I mishandled some abuse cases. Do you want me gone? I'm gone. Francis said no. And now Marx's resignation letter has not been accepted. And they're not showing signs of accepting it. And even though, Grand Inquisitor Tuco, yes, okay, he's the head of the dicastery for the doctrine of the faith. He's the cardinal prefect who's the head of the dicastery for the doctrine of the faith. But Grand Inquisitor sounds cooler. So anyway, so Tuco, friend of the channel, has said that he is basically, oh, naughty Germans, don't do that. Don't do any more. But he didn't tell them to pulp the blessing book. So people in Germany can still be blessed according to that formulary. I don't know. Might be a nice time to think of when the world's less crazy, it might be kind of fun to take a vacation. Some people might think it's fun to take a vacation to Germany. And, Germany's got some really pretty cathedrals. Just saying. Destination blessing. Could be fun. Anyway, so moving along. Somebody asked a question. The SSPX Schism Watch. Okay, very short summary for people who are new here. The SSPX has decided that they are going to consecrate bishops without permission from the Pope. According to the current canon law, in this year of grace, 2026, if someone ordains a priest or consecrates a bishop without permission, both the person doing the consecration or the ordination and the person being ordained is in schism and is automatically excommunicated for schism immediately, as soon as the act takes place. So that's so that is a pretty clear line. And the SSPX went to Cardinal Fernandez and they said, we want bishops. And he said, no. And they said, well, we're going to do it anyway. So July 1st, they have said they are going to go ahead and consecrate bishops. And all I have to say is July 1st, I'm going to be live streaming I'm not going to go insane and try to do 24 hours because that's too much. That stream no longer exists for a reason. But what I am going to do is just kind of spend a day, kind of monitoring the trad reactions to the schism. Because it's going to be fun, because there's a lot of stuff that's going to happen with that. Because if the SSPX goes into schism, there are a lot of current and former Catholics who might decide to follow them. And that is something that we need to be very concerned about, because right now, in case you haven't noticed, there are, or you don't live in the US and have been able to ignore this fact, there are a lot of Catholics or people who are saying, yeah, we don't support the Pope. He's too woke. He's a woke Marxist. By the way, anybody who can sing, I have a parody version of Pink Pony Club called Woke Marxist Pope that I've written. I cannot sing. You do not want to hear me sing. But if anybody would record that for me, I will play that on YouTube, because yeah, we have a woke Marxist Pope, but not as Marxist as he could be. We could have had an actual Pope Marx. Um, but now we have somebody to illustrate why I'm genuinely concerned about the possibility of the SSPX working with Donald Trump or somebody else to create a schismatic Church of America, actually along the lines of Henry VIII, that could be used to, potentially persecute American Catholics, shut churches down. People have been saying for years that they want churches to have to pay property tax. Yeah, churches can scrape up the money, but I'm not gonna lie. I belong to a very small, well, no, it's not a small parish, it's a large parish. It's a large working class parish, and we managed to get enough in the collection plates to keep the lights on, pay for a Catholic school that offers a whole bunch of scholarships, and pay for St. Vincent de Paul. And the building is the only thing that we have that's worth any money. And it would be tough for us to have to pay property tax. So a lot of people would support churches having to pay property taxes. Just saying. So will that happen? I don't know. What I do know is that Sean Hannity decided to shoot his mouth off, and we're gonna listen to what Mr. Hannity had to say. Hey, Mom. Okay, it's taking a little while to load.
Now, I do want to shift gears with a message to the Vatican tonight, specifically to Pope Leo, who has opened.
Okay, before we start yelling, okay, I love his, well, crap. That was not what I wanted to click on. Okay. Okay, cool, there we go. Okay, so I do want to
Now, I do want
pause.
to shift gears with a message to the Vatican.
Okay, as somebody who enjoys costuming and historical clothing in general, I just have to say how much I enjoy looking at vestments. Because like, I mean, look at the, like, we've got a combination of like applique and embroidery on the cloak here. We've got a really nice little clasp, and he has an aspergillium, which is like a special holy water flinging. It's a especially designed holy water flinger. So let's just take a moment to appreciate the beauty of the vestments before Sean Hannity starts shooting off his mouth. And again, this is kind of also illustrating the fact, once again, for people who hate converts, you got to stop. The call is coming from inside the house. Oh, Bede brought up that Hannity left the church in 2019. Well, apparently he doesn't think that he left the church because he's got to resign again. I don't know. But I would also point out that Sean Hannity, cradle Catholic. So anybody who's hating on converts, remember that in this case, the call is coming from inside the house. The call is coming from deep inside the house because, frankly, Irish Catholics have historically been part of the problem in the US. And I'm saying that, oh, okay. Occasionally I feel the need to flex my Irish Catholic cred. My family story is that my first Christian ancestor was baptized by St. Patrick himself. And from what we know about our family history, there's actually a non-zero chance that that's actually true. Can I prove it? No. But I know that my ancestor, I know that I have an ancestor who was in the right place at the right time. Just saying. So, you know, just saying, when I am criticizing Irish Catholics, I am saying this as someone who has deep Irish Catholic roots. The difference is my family crossed the Mississippi and things are different.
Tonight, specifically to Pope Leo, who has openly condemned America's war in Iran while seemingly enjoying a public fight with President Trump. First, let me give some context. Like millions of Americans, I was raised Catholic. I went to Catholic school for 12 years. I even attended a seminary in high school, studied theology, Latin, went to Mass daily.
Okay, when Sean Hannity says that he was in seminary, what he is saying is that there was a period of time in high school where he was going to a high school that was designed primarily for young men who were considering entering the priesthood. The fact that he left the seminary basically means that Sean Hannity washed out of priest school. Now, there are lots of reasons why somebody might wash out of priest school. A really common one is that a young man might decide, you know what, I want to get married. Or I want to get married in the church to a woman and have a bunch of Catholic babies. Or he might say, I want to get married outside of the church to a man and have our blessing and have our relationship blessed. That's pretty common. Some people, they just realize that their particular personality, their temperament, sometimes even their physical abilities are not such that they will be suited to be a priest. Being a priest is a really hard job. And not everybody wants to dedicate their life to that, and that is fine. There is no shame in washing out of seminary. But that also means that Sean Hannity washed out of seminary. So he's criticizing the Pope as a layman, and he's criticizing the Pope as a layman who decided as a teenager that he couldn't hack it. Because Pope Leo went into the seminary when he was 14. He went to boarding school. And then after he was done in seminary boarding school, he went to Villanova and got a BA in math. So, anyway, there's Sean Hannity. Oh, by the way, 12 years of Catholic school, sometimes that produces a good Catholic. Sometimes that creates like somebody who likes to pretend that going to Catholic school for 12 years makes them extra super special.
I got a lot out of it. My parents, they were devout Catholics. And while wasn't particularly engaged at the time in the teachings of the Catholic Church, as a young person, it certainly entered my consciousness and made me a better person. And it has been a positive force in my life in so many ways. But as of today, I no longer consider myself a Catholic. And while I am a Christian, I left the Catholic Church in large part because of institutionalized corruption, and it was at the parish level, to the bishop level, cardinals, all the way to Rome. And, you know, the very top scandals, terrible behavior, frankly, went not only unchecked, but they never fully corrected it or dealt with it. And others at the Vatican have totally lost sight of the true meaning of the Bible and its teachings. I don't know why, for the first 1,200 years of the church, priests were allowed to marry. They changed that law. But right on cue, Pope Leo the 14th.
Okay, what Sean Hannity is alluding to is the ongoing are the issues that went on with SA in the Catholic Church, which is pretty well known, that came out in around 2000. Now, I want to emphasize that that was the Catholic Church's Me Too movement. Yeah, 12 years is quite a while. Yeah, the basically, yeah, but see, the thing is like Sean Hannity said that he left in 2019, and he's saying that he left again. When you have to keep announcing that you're leaving, it kind of brings up the question about how, you know, how out are you, you know, or was he just one of those people who had like kind of 1 foot out and 1 foot in for a really long time? Now with the SA scandal, basically it was the Catholic Church's Me Too movement, both in the sense that it really broke open a lot of corruption, and in the sense that, well, in my diocese, it was Father Carl. And like back in the 90s, there were rumors that one of the parishes had a priest that was a problem. And maybe you didn't want to go to that church, or maybe you didn't want to send your kids to that church. And maybe you sure didn't want to volunteer your kid to be an altar server. And then we found out that every church had a father, that every diocese had a Father Carl, and maybe more than one. And keep in mind, our version of this, there was only one victim. I'm not excusing that. I'm saying that, you know, that there are questions of scale, and small scale abusers found it easier to hide. Now, what Sean Hannity is saying when he's saying things were not handled correctly, he does not mean that policies were not put in place to prevent abuse. Yeah, and Bede brought up, there's, you know, he has a priest in his diocese who's leaving to get married. That happens too. And that's actually part of the problem, is that basically what happened was in the late 19th century, people invented homosexuality. And by that, I mean that they decided that, you know, Krafft Ebing and a lot of early German sexologists figured out that there are some people who are genuinely only attracted to members of the opposite gender. And there are some people who are only attracted to members of the same gender. And there are some people who are only attracted to people who have the right kind of genitals. So basically, once you had once you realize that homosexuality is an orientation and that heterosexuality is an orientation, that opens the door to saying that there are some people who are who are built different. And there was a temptation to blame a bunch of abuse on the existence of gay priests. And unfortunately, one of the things that did was there was a big push for we are going to make sure that anybody who gets ordained is heterosexual and is choosing not to have sex with women. In practice, what that meant was that you got rid of anybody who wasn't willing to lie. So you got rid of the honest ones and you kept the pedophiles, or you kept the people who had a really problematic and self-destructive view of what it meant to be gay. And because they believed that there was literally no moral difference whether the person that they were getting involved with was a teenager, or if the person that they were getting physically involved with was an adult. And they made some very bad and very evil choices. And people like Sean Hannity thought that the answer to that was to allow married priests and to hardcore purge the Catholic Church of anyone who did not want to get married and have children. And the Catholic Church decided not to do that. And when you consider the fact that there have been actual steps in terms of what's allowed in terms of behavior and interaction and what is not, that have happened in the Catholic Church and, say, the LDS Church, some of the Baptist churches, a lot of the evangelical churches have not taken those steps, and they have married clergy, and they have an abuse problem too. So I think we're now finally at the point where we're talking about abuse, and we're talking about preventing abuse. And the only time when men are being, that it's basically if you allow unscrupulous men to have access to power over vulnerable people, you're going to create problems. And really, all you can do is build systems that deal with those people when problems occur. And Sean Hannity is wrong about the way you prevent abuse. And that's why he's following Donald Trump, who is an adjudicated rapist, rather than following Pope Leo, who is just saying, you know what, maybe let's not be terrible to people, and maybe let's not bomb innocent children. And, and pushing for peace in the Middle East is something that's extremely personal for Leo. He found out that one of the boys who was photographed greeting him when he made his trip to Lebanon has now been killed. And he's carrying that child's picture with him, a little Muslim boy, because that when he is standing up for peace, he's thinking about that boy. He's thinking about the girls who were killed at a girls' school in Iran. That's who Leo is fighting for. Leo is fighting for the children who are going to die because of Donald Trump's ego. And Sean Hannity is carrying water for Donald Trump because he cannot deal with the idea that Leo is someone who needs to be listened to.
Is now seemingly more interested in spreading left-wing politics and the actual teachings of Jesus Christ. As the AP put it, quote, Pope Leo amplified his condemnation of America's conflict with Iran, saying that God does not bless any conflict and certainly doesn't side with those who drop bombs. Well, first, that is simply not biblical.
Okay. I'm going to play what Sean Hannity is about to say, which is him, like, on the basis of having washed out of seminary in high school and having gone to Catholic school for 12 whole years and having had an on again, off again relationship with the Catholic Church for most of the past decade, is about to explain to Pope Leo, who has a doctorate in canon law from, well, Leo went to the Pontifical Academy of Thomas Aquinas, and I know I just got the name wrong because it's very long. The point is, Leo went to the good church university. He went to the one that has existed in its current form since the 16th century. This is where this is a school Dominicans created to teach theology. It's hardcore, and canon law. It's hardcore. Before that, he got a master's in divinity from a Catholic seminary that has a partnership with the University of Chicago's Div School. Basically, he did a lot of his academic coursework at the University of Chicago. He also reads St. Augustine, like, for fun on the regular. So I'm just saying that given the choice between a Fox News host who washed out of seminary and a guy who has an MDiv from Chicago, I'm going with the guy from Chicago all day, every day.
Accurate. The Bible contains over 400 references to war, frequently depicting God as authorizing, commanding, intervening in battles like one that we all know, the battle between David and Goliath. Why is the Pope twisting religion to specifically attack only President Trump and the U.S.?
He's not just criticizing President Trump. He's criticizing Putin, who Hannity also likes. He's criticizing anyone who is starting a war in which innocent people are going to suffer. And guess what? That's pretty much every war. And yeah, there's a lot of stuff in the Bible about warfare. Guess what? The conquest of Canaan never happened. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. I can't talk. Hallelujah. Yay. Hallelujah. Okay, why can't I say it? Oh, yeah, that's because I'm just trying to say it and not give it all of its syllables. Hallelujah. I'm sorry, I'm Catholic. That word has way more than 3 syllables. But the point is that the conquest of Canaan never happened. So there's a lot of warfare in the Bible that we can't just say, okay, it's in the Bible, so life is good. So yeah, Leo, and again, like Bede said, Leo was arguing against holy war. And Leo was also saying that the Catholic Church has a very high standard for what counts as a just war. And basically, a just war is, well, that's what's going on in Ukraine right now. Ukraine was invaded. Ukraine has a reasonable chance of being able to continue to exist as long as they can hold out. So they're fighting back. That is a just war. What's going on in Iran is not a just war. That's what Leo's saying. Leo has the right to say that because Leo is the Pope. Sean Hannity is choosing not to be Catholic because he is picking Donald Trump over Pope Leo.
U.S. Why did he recently meet with top Obama advisor David Axelrod and the far-left governor of Illinois, J.B. Pritzker? Is it because he's a run-of-the-mill Trump-hating Democrat that lacks moral clarity about radical Islam? By the way,
okay. Two things. One, Pope Leo met with those guys because he understands that we are in a very delicate political moment, and he is taking the best advice that he can. Also, Blaise Supich, who was Pope Francis's strong right arm in America and has continued to play that role for Leo, is the Archbishop of Chicago. Chicago is one of the largest, oldest, and strongest archdioceses in the United States. So if Leo is going to be doing business with Americans, he's got to be thinking about what's going on in Chicago. David Axelrod is one of the smartest political operators on the left. He's one of the guys that got Obama elected. So yeah, Leo's going to talk to him because Leo is smart. And Leo understands that that if you fight stupid, you lose. Again, Leo's from Chicago. He knows the story, and he knows that it was an accountant who took down Al Capone. Oh, and the whole radical Islam.
did he talk to them about abortion?
No. Leo has said that abortion is no longer going to be the Catholic Church's main issue. Because, frankly, Leo has seen that focusing on abortion has led to nothing good except a whole bunch of people who think that they can be single issue voters. And also a whole bunch of people who think that making abortion illegal is all that's necessary. And as far as the radical Islam thing goes, Leo's smart enough to know the difference between danger and not danger. He's willing to understand that there's a whole bunch of Muslims who are suffering right now who are good, decent people. And that he has people in the Catholic Church, like Sean Hannity, who want to start a war that will hurt a lot of good people. So he's willing to go to bat because he knows what the right thing is. And Sean Hannity has a problem with that because Sean Hannity wants religion to be a tool of fascism.
Well, in that case, where are the pointed words for Iran, this evil regime, the #1 state sponsor of terror, the people that murdered 45,000 innocent protesters? Not a peep from Pope Leo.
Leo was not Pope when the protests were going on in Iran. Leo also understands that diplomacy is necessary and that just yelling and just standing on the outside screaming about how much the other side sucks does not actually result in change, because Leo isn't a blowhard. And yeah, I know that I talk a lot. Guess what? I'm Irish Catholic too. We talk a lot. We are a belligerent people. Leo's French Catholic and Creole Catholic. They get the job done. But you know what? Sometimes, Leo needs somebody to yell at people. And it's not my job, but it's what I do for fun. It's what I do for fun on Thursday afternoon. So I will just have to be Leo's little emotional outburst Catholic. So let's just keep going. I want to see if I can get through the rest of this video.
Has now set to, literally have 4 more protesters and hang them and kill them, including a woman. Nothing from Pope Leo. Iran oppresses women. Nothing from Pope Leo. Tortures them, rapes them, kills them. Nothing from the Pope. Iran backs terrorists in Iraq and Beirut who have killed Americans for decades. Nothing from Pope Leo. Iran drops bombs on holy sites and neighborhoods.
Again, because that's not the problem right now. Right now, the problem is people being killed by American bombs. That's why Leo's doing what he's doing. And yeah, they have issued statements. And, when bad things happen to peaceful protesters, the church says something. Sean Hannity doesn't care.
All over Israel, densely populated areas like Tel Aviv, and Pope Leo is not bothered to call them out by name. And while the Pope condemned,
he's been calling for a ceasefire. He wants a ceasefire because a ceasefire is the first step to peace.
All nuclear weapons, especially on the anniversary of Hiroshima, I don't think we had a choice. Same with Nagasaki. It did end a war, it saved a lot of American lives. He doesn't seem interested in ever referencing Iran's unrelenting pursuit of them.
Yeah, Leo said that he's not in favor of nuclear weapons. Unlike Sean Hannity, who just said that he does not have a problem with having bombed Hiroshima or Nagasaki. I'm not going to relitigate that. It's super complicated. And frankly, the war in the Pacific there's a reason why we don't talk about that one in very much in American high schools. But the point is, Sean Hannity has just said that he is totally okay with dropping atomic bombs, with dropping nuclear bombs. He just doesn't think that the bad people should have access to them. And I mean, that's an ideology, but it's not exactly a consistent one.
And I have a question for the Pope. Is it the right or wrong thing to prevent radical mullahs in Iran, again, the #1 state sponsor of terror, from ever having nuclear weapons? Today, President Trump raised this very important question. Take a look.
Well, I want him to preach the gospel. I'm all about the gospel, but I also know that you cannot let a certain...
Yeah, Trump is not all about the gospel. I'm going to close this out by showing a little clip of Trump reading or attempting to read from the Bible, and it's not pretty. It's really not pretty.
country, which is a very mean-spirited country, have a nuclear weapon. If they did, they would use it.
The president is correct. The Pope is wrong on so many levels. Perhaps Leo's judgment is clouded. After all, he has an old Twitter account. And by the way,
oh yeah. Yeah, by the way, yeah, yes, indeed. Pope Leo has a Twitter account, or had a Twitter account, and he reposted Sister Helen Prejean, who was like, I stand with all dreamers, and another guy who said that Pope's bad hombres line fueled racism and nativism, and quoted the California bishops. It's also worth noting that that forensic examination of Pope Leo's Twitter account, once he became Pope Leo, revealed that one of the accounts that he followed belonged to Gerard O'Connell, who is a very excellent Irish, actually from Ireland, Irish journalist who works for America Magazine, which is the leading Jesuit publication in the US. So, yeah.
It is riddled with Trump messages, including posts accusing Donald Trump of fueling racism and nativism, and other posts pushing for climate change and open borders. Ultimately, preventing Iran from getting a nuclear weapon is both moral and logical, and it could save potentially millions of lives, and we won't burden our children and grandchildren.
Yeah, so it's also worth pointing out that if Iran had a nuclear weapon, they would not be getting bombed right now. So it's a really complex issue, and part of the complexity comes from the fact that right now everybody knows that if you have mutually assured destruction, there is a level of being messed with that will not happen, and that's a problem. I don't know the way out of that problem. I do know that throwing screaming fits on Fox News is probably not going to help. But what do I know? I just yell at people on the internet.
Children with a nuclear armed terrorist state. Now, sadly, the same cannot be said for the leadership today of the Catholic Church. All right, thanks for watching. Check out my new podcast, Hanging Out with Me, Sean Hannity. The big interviews, the debates you won't get anywhere else.
Okay, yeah. So Sean Hannity is a podcaster by his own admission. And I just wanted to, show people kind of a little bit about what's going on there. As far as some of the response from the Catholic Church. And I also, let's see if I can find it. I didn't queue this up all the way. Okay. But okay, yeah, here we go. Okay, so this is Donald Trump attempting to read the Bible. He's holding the Bible in front of him. He is clearly reading the text off of a teleprompter. And yeah, it's not good. Now I am showing the clip that was shown off of Shannon Vavich's account. Shannon Vavich runs a very excellent channel called The Flying Kitchen. It started out as a cooking channel. She still has a lot of great recipes, and she has started talking about the the scary fascist side of the Catholic Church, because she was sort of tangentially connected with Opus Dei for a while. She's a very cool, very interesting person. I've jumped in her comment section a few times, and she has been nothing but awesome and gracious and funny and interesting. And everybody should go check out her channel. I don't know why I'm plugging her, because people have found her already, but please check her out. And I'm using her specifically because I would rather give her clicks and views than a random news site or a Trump fan account. Anyway, so I just want to hear Donald Trump attempting to read 2 Corinthians.
Where did you go? I was delayed. Okay. And I'm so excited to just do stuff. Just go play. I guess he is a good guy. He is reading from the Bible. I don't want to be seen as anti-Bible. I don't want to be seen as anti-God, because we all know how they use their false dichotomies. Thank you, Mary Fair. We wish they were.
Okay, let's see. It was pretty deep in there.
Actually decide that they're going to do this. Okay. I really do. It'll be fun. It'll be an adventure. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. I don't.
Okay, I'm just gonna I'm gonna
Let's see. I'm gonna take that down. We are gonna go look at this NCR article now,
oh, okay.
and we're gonna look at.
I apologize. I cannot find Shannon Vavich's clip. I was ill prepared. I'm just going to then go Trump reads. Okay, Trump reads the Bible live because I just want to close out with showing how bad this was. So let's go. Okay, I am going back into screen sharing. Okay, and he is reading from Second Chronicles, chapter 7, verse 11 through 22.
Solomon finished the house of the Lord and the king's house. Thus Solomon finished the house of the Lord and the king's house, and all that came into Solomon's heart to make in the house of the Lord, and in his own house he prosperously effected. And the Lord appeared to Solomon by night and said to him, I have heard your prayer and have chosen this place to myself for a house of sacrifice. If I shut up heaven, that there be no rain, or if I command the.
Okay, not only is he reading really, really badly, but I just want to highlight the fact that whoever chose this particular section of the Bible for him chose a part of the Bible where God is coming down and talking to King Solomon and telling him how awesome it is to make buildings and how awesome Solomon is because Solomon is going to make the awesomest buildings. Strikes me as, maybe a wee bit self-serving, but what do I know? Maybe designed to stroke Donald's ego just a little bit.
The locust to devour the land, or if I send pestilence among my people, if my people which are called by my name shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways.
I love how Donald Trump is reading those words like he's reading a speech off of a teleprompter. And you can tell just by his delivery that he's talking to us using God's words. He is literally taking the words of the Lord in vain and making them about how everybody needs to apologize and be good.
Then will I hear from heaven and will forgive their sins and will heal their land. Now my eyes shall be open and my ears attent to the prayer that is made in this place. For now I have chosen and sanctified this house, that my name may be there forever.
Yeah, absolutely.
And my eyes and my heart shall be there perpetually. And as for you, if you will walk before me, as David your father walked, and do according to all that I have commanded you.
Yeah, I honestly, I'm trying to be charitable here. I do not see any way of hearing his words that make it sound like he's not speaking for God. I apologize about the phone call. I have family and I have roommates, and sometimes things happen rapidly.
And shall observe my statutes and my judgments. Then will I establish the throne of my kingdom according to as I have covenanted with David your father, saying, there shall not fail you as a man to be ruler in Israel. But if you turn away and forsake my statutes and my commandments, which I have set before you, and shall go and serve other gods and worship them, then will I pluck them up from the roots out of my.
Worshiping other gods. You mean like, oh, I don't know, picking Trump over the Pope? That kind of worshiping other gods? I'm just asking questions.
Land which I have given them, and this house which I have sanctified for my name will I cast out of my sight, and will make it to be a proverb and a byword among nations. And this house which is high shall be an astonishment to every one that passes by it, so that he shall say, why has the Lord done thus to this land and to this house? And it shall be answered, because they forsook the Lord God of their fathers, which brought them forth out of the land of Egypt, and laid hold on other gods, and worshiped them and served them. Therefore has he brought all this evil upon them.
Yep. So, yeah, that's America Reads the Bible. Awesome. I am going to stop screen sharing. Okay, so that's kind of all I had for today. It's been a lot. It's been a ride. I hope that we've kind of gotten people up to date on what's going on, what might be going on, and who some of the players are and where they're ending up. So come back on Thursday for more exciting modern Catholicism. On Tuesday, so coming up this Sunday, it will be the fourth Sunday in Easter. We will be doing our usual thing where we go through the lectionary, talk about what it means in light of recent critical scholarship. Then on Tuesday, I will be coming back to talk about a little bit about church history. I've kind of talked about a little bit the papacy in the modern world. Before I get to Pope Leo's critics, I'm going to go a little bit backwards and talk about how the Pope went from being a minor Italian, or not a minor, a major Italian landholder and nobleman to being a celebrity influencer who is really just politically in charge of Vatican City, which is very small. How does that happen? How does that change Catholics' relationship with the Pope and the Church? Well, we'll talk about that on Tuesday. In the meantime, I hope you will enjoy some of the content that I'm tossing up about the conclave and the death of Francis and the conclave and the selection of Leo. So we've got some good content coming up. It's going to be a great time, and everybody have a wonderful day. Bye.